You ever have one of those mornings where you think it's going to be quiet coffee, steaming birds singing, and then life decides to throw you straight into a circus? That was me sitting on my porch at sunrise watching the fog lift off the fields I've walked since I was a kid. Then came the click of high heels on gravel. Sharp, fast, and way too confident for 7 a.m. I didn't even look up at first, figured it was another delivery, or one of the new neighbors lost again. But then a voice cut through the quiet, sweet as battery acid. Effective immediately, she said, dropping a white envelope onto my porch table. You owe the Homeowners Association $1 million in fines. $1 million. I thought I'd misheard her. I took a slow sip of coffee, squinted up at her and said, Ma'am, you planning on building a rocket ship with that money or just buying more hairspray? Her name was Loretta Pierce, self-appointed queen of Maple Creek Estates, though we're 10 miles outside city limits. She ran the HOA like it was the Pentagon and somehow convinced herself that my land, the same land my granddad broke his back on, fell under her jurisdiction. She listed off my supposed crimes like she was reading a court order. Unapproved livestock, she said, pointing toward the rooster strutting across the yard. Unauthorized porch furniture, she added, glaring at my rocking chair like it was a weapon. And my favorite tractor parking violations. I told her the day my John Deere starts committing crimes, I'll have it turn itself in. Neighbors started peeking over fences, whispering phones already out. Loretta loved an audience. She waved a stack of papers like a baton, smiling that kind of smile that only comes from too much power and not enough sense. We've given you 30 days to pay, or the HOA will reclaim your property, she said, like she was announcing a royal decree. I set my mug down and stood up slow, the old chair creaking behind me. Lady, I said, brushing the dust off my badge. 30 years. I wore that thing as sheriff of this county. You just picked the wrong porch to die on. She flinched just a bit, then covered it with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her stood the board, a line of middle-aged yes-men in matching polo shirts, each holding a clipboard like a shield. The police showed up next, called by her. Of course, 2 cruisers with lights flashing, but no clue what they were walking into. I could see it in their faces. They didn't know who to believe. Loretta had her paperwork. I had the dirt under my boots and the deed in my vest. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, she hissed, lowering her voice. You may think you're special, but rules are rules. Funny, I said I was thinking the same thing about common sense. By that afternoon, things had gotten real loud. Trucks rolled up one after another. Folks I hadn't seen in years. Ranchers, veterans, old deputies. People I'd stood shoulder to shoulder with back when this town still had grit. They weren't there to fight. They were there because they'd seen what Loretta was doing to everyone else, fines for mailboxes, for Christmas lights, for having a flag that didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic. She'd turned the HOA into her own little empire, and my ranch was supposed to be her crown jewel. Big Mike was the first to step out of his truck arms like tree trunks, grinning like a man who just found a bar fight he'd been looking for. Heard you had yourself a pest problem, he said, slapping my shoulder. The crowd laughed. Loretta didn't. Then came Slim, ex-Navy, quiet but dangerous in that way you can feel more than see. Guess retirement's over, he said, leaning against his Jeep. I nodded. Appreciate the house call, Loretta shouted over the noise. This is private HOA business. You can't bring outsiders. Slim chuckled. Outsiders. Lady, half of us grew up playing stickball on this dirt road. The crowd roared. Even the cops cracked a smile. Loretta's face turned the color of overripe tomatoes. That's when I pulled out the folder I'd been saving. The original deed. Signed, notarized, and stamped long before the HOA even existed. I held it up high. This land's been ours since 1949. You don't own a damn inch of it. But Loretta, she wasn't giving up. She pulled out another paper, flashing a county seal. By order of the clerk's office, she said, "This deed is under review." My heart sank for half a second. Then I saw it. The signature was wrong. She'd bribed someone down at the county. Before I could speak, old Joe from next door shouted, "That's fraud!" The crowd erupted again. Loretta sneered. "It's called initiative." That's when I knew we were past words. She'd crossed from petty to dangerous. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number, and said 4 words. "It's time. Bring everyone." 5 minutes later, the rumble started, deep, heavy, rolling across the valley. Engines. Loretta's smile faded as headlights appeared over the hill. A convoy of old trucks, jeeps, even a retired sheriff's chopper that still ran somehow. When that helicopter came in low, kicking up dust and wind, the HOA board clutched their clipboards like life preservers. The neighbors cheered. Kids yelled. Clucky the rooster crowed like it was Judgment Day. Loretta screamed over the chaos. "You can't bring an army here." I tipped my hat. Didn't bring an army. Brought friends. Veterans jumped out with metal barricades, setting them in front of the bulldozers. Loretta had called to seize my land. The machine stopped cold. One of the guys knocked on a dozer's window with a wrench and said, "Sorry, fellas, construction's closed today." The crowd exploded in laughter. Loretta's voice rose to a shriek. "Get the media down here!" Within 20 minutes, 2 news vans showed up, cameras rolling. She straightened her hair and strutted toward them like she was about to deliver the State of the Union. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I am the president of this HOA, and I stand against chaos." The cameras turned to me. Sheriff, one reporter asked, "Is it true you were fined $1 million for a rocking chair?" I held up the letter. "Not just the chair for my rooster, my tractor, my gnomes, and my land. All to scare me off property that's been in my family for generations." The crowd went wild. Another reporter shouted, "Do they even have jurisdiction over your ranch?" I smiled. "Not according to the county, but according to Loretta, they've got supreme authority. Maybe next week they'll fine the sun for rising too early." The laughter shook the street, and the cameras caught every second. Loretta lunged for the evidence boxes. We'd brought receipts, ledgers, bank statements showing she'd been skimming HOA funds for years. Trips, handbags, spa days, even a security expense that turned out to be her dog groomer. Slim hooked up a small projector to the side of the barn, and her financial records lit up for everyone to see. "This," I said, "is where your dues went." It was over. The crowd was chanting, "Down with the HOA." Loretta's board members started backing away, dropping their clipboards like soldiers deserting a sinking ship. One of them, Richard, her second in command, muttered, "I never signed up for this," and bolted down the street. Then came my favorite part. Clucky the rooster strutted up to Loretta's fallen papers and started pecking at them, scattering them like confetti. The neighbors howled. "Clucky for president," someone yelled. Loretta spun in circles, shrieking, "Get that demon chicken away from me!" I leaned back, hands in my pockets. "That's Sheriff Clucky to you." The cops finally stepped in, their radios crackling. One of them said quietly, "Ma'am, you'll need to step back. There's evidence of embezzlement here." She screeched, "I'm the victim. Nobody bought it." A week later, we all found ourselves in court. The room was packed, neighbors, reporters, even folks from 2 counties over. Judge Matthews sat up front, calm but curious. Loretta came in like she owned the place, pearls jangling, waving her binders. "Your Honor," she said, "this man owes the HOA $1 million. The judge raised an eyebrow. For what Loretta listed it out again: rooster noise, unapproved furniture, garden decor. The judge leaned back. "Ma'am, if a rocking chair and a rooster cost $1 million, I'm sitting on a fortune." The courtroom laughed so hard she nearly burst a vein. I stood up, placed the old deed on the bench, and said, "This land's been in my family since before her rules had ink. The HOA has no claim." Then Slim rolled in another box, the proof of her theft, every dollar accounted for. The room went dead quiet. Loretta lunged for the papers, screaming, "Those are lies!" The judge's gavel slammed down. "Ms. Pierce, sit down." And when she finally did, shaking and furious, the judge said, "This court finds that the HOA has no authority over Mr. Dawson's property. Furthermore, Ms. Pierce, you are fined $1 million in restitution to the community." The irony hit her like a freight train. She screamed, but it was over. The crowd cheered, reporters flashed cameras, and Clucky, yes, someone brought him, jumped up on the table and crowed like a victory trumpet. That night we threw a barbecue out by the barn. The sun dipped behind the hills, painting everything gold. Kids ran through the fields. Neighbors laughed like they hadn't in years. I sat back in my rocking chair, the same illegal one, sipping sweet tea while the fireflies came out. My wife leaned over and said, "So what now?" I smiled, slow and tired, but satisfied. "Now," I said, "we enjoy the peace they tried to fine us for." Funny thing about people like Loretta, they think power comes from paper. But out here, it comes from history, from dirt under your nails, from standing your ground when the world tells you to fold. So tell me, what would you have done if someone tried to take the land your family built with their bare hands? Would you walk away or stand and fight? Drop your thoughts below. I read every one of them.